Hello and welcome to another video. In today's video we are going to be continuing on the Motostandard 1010, and today we're going to be doing some investigation into our replacement engine for it. Apologies for the background noise, that's our workshop heater. But in the last video on this tractor, we took delivery of these bushings, which we got to eliminate some of the play in the steering system, and we began to install some of them. But before we go any further with that, we would like to make sure that our replacement engine fits in the engine bay with no issues. So to do that, we'll have to temporarily refit the dashboard and the bonnet or hood, and we might as well also reinstall the battery tray at the same time, just so we can see how that fits with the engine in there. First thing that we're going to fix back in is the battery tray here, which has this slot, and I'm not fully sure if it needs to be in a certain place, but we rewatched our video where we took this off and that should go there. Now if I roughly locate this, there is 3 captive nuts on this. One there, and one there. There isn't one there. Not sure if that's broken off or that's because it would foul something on the underside of the chassis. But we've run an M8 tap through these to get rid of any debris that's in there. And since it's metric, we have quite a lot of stock of these fixings, so we've got all new bolts and washers to put on there. And for my American followers, an M8 bolt means you need to use a 13mm socket, so I'll just line these washers up, which you have to put on as spacers to counter this bit of the dash lifting this up a bit. So I'll try and line these up without fouling how I've just done the washers. And now I will line up the bolts. There we go, that's the second one lined up. That one sounds a bit gritty there. I'll just use the extension here to do this a bit quicker. Done. The next thing to go on is the top part of the dash tower, but we're actually going to clean it up a bit before it goes on. We're going to take out this metal part because that might need to be modified for the throttle and choke cables on the new engine. We're not fully sure yet, but we're going to take the metal part out and leave it out. And then with this plastic part, it looks quite dirty at the moment, so we're going to clean it up. We did actually try cleaning up one side of it, and we're very pleased with how that turned out. So we're going to try and replicate that all over this panel, and we will get back to you with a clean panel. Quite a while later now, and we've cleaned this up quite nicely, but there's still a decent amount to do, but we thought we would stop there so that we can actually get on and get some stuff done. Now if I place this over here, like so, that's where it goes. We've decided we won't bolt it in, because this isn't going to be here permanently. As we said, we still need to do some more cleaning on it. That can just sit there to allow us to put something else on, which is the bonnet, or the hood as you American people would call it. And you can see the difference here between where we've started to clean it up and where it hasn't been cleaned yet. Quite a lot of oil on the underside of this, but what we can do now is drop the hood or bonnet on like that. That obviously fits as it should do, but what we can do now is take this off again, dump the engine in, and see if our replacement engine fits with the hood on. We've pulled the engine out and around to here on the stand that we put it on, and we are now going to lift this into the tractor, which our main concerns are the height of this engine, which is a lot taller, and the top of it is a different shape to the old engine, which this is the engine cover for, and you can kind of see how that went in here. So with our new engine being bigger, it might be a bit more of a squeeze, and also with this big exhaust can here, we're hoping that that won't foul anything on the chassis here, but we'll have to look out for that as we drop it in. But we're not going to video dropping it in, but we will give you an update once we have it sitting on the chassis. As you can see here, the engine fits like a glove, just a glove that's the wrong size, and we've spotted two immediate problems with this engine. We took the grill off to make it easier to put the engine in, but if we try to put this back in the position it should be, it's the exhaust. So what we're going to have to do is probably put a different exhaust on, but we're not fully decided on what we want to do yet. Another problem is when we put the hood on top to see how that fitted. The top of the engine here was okay, the proper engine cover, but the chunk that's taken out of the hood from factory for the air filter is not big enough for this air filter. This air filter is too tall, so we might have to change something about that too to actually make it fit. Now, first thing I'm going to do is take that off, and we are going to detach the exhaust first. Now we haven't really looked at this yet on this tractor, and it appears to be attached by one bolt there and two there, with the heat shield for the carburetor as well. Now I'm expecting these bolts to be pretty rusty, so we're going to undo these quite slowly while going back to clean the threads out as well. We've loosened the three bolts a bit now. This bracket appears to not even be attached to the exhaust. Whether it was to start off with or not, I'm not sure, but it's definitely not attached now, so we don't need to worry about that anymore. And we are going to undo these with Dad's new 3/8 socket, or Dad's new 3/8 ratchet and socket set, which we might talk about in a video in the future. But these bolts are coming undone a lot easier now. The first bit was quite stiff on these. and this is a 1/2-inch socket because of course the engine is American, even though we're fitting it to a tractor that usually uses metric fittings. I can see this bolt is not in very good condition from being in the exhaust, as you can see there. Just get a couple more turns on this. There we go. Take that bolt out too. And then we can pull this away. Like so. There's the heat shield, I'll put that there. Exhaust can go there. And if I grab this...
Does that look as though that bracket was attached or not?
That would go to about that. Not really, actually. So I'm not fully sure what this bracket was for if it wasn't for...
It looks as though it was attached.
Oh, yeah, there, possibly. But then if we pick up the front grille here and put this back into place, you can see that now fits just fine, and it actually goes perfectly under the air filter. We've quickly refitted the grille on the front here, and we chucked the bonnet back on just so you can see how the air filter is fouling that, with it being too tall and almost actually the size of the gap that's been cut out lengthwise. One option that we did just think of for the exhaust is we could put an extension coming out from there to this about there, and just reuse this old exhaust can. Obviously there's many other options to do that, but we're just going to take the hood off again, and we will take the air filter cover off, the air filter out, and put this back on again so we can see what space we're working with. We've now removed the air filter and the base off of the carburetor, and the hood fits as it did before perfectly, and you can see the space that we've got there for our solution, which we've spent a bit of time thinking of a couple of ways to solve this problem, but we will discuss them in a minute. First, we're going to show you another problem with the engine that we put into this tractor, which is the fuel tank location. This is the fuel tank off of the old engine that was in this tractor. Now, if I just quickly lift the bonnet here, if we put the tank where it was on the old engine, you can see it doesn't really fit with this engine. On the old one, it fully went around this bit, whereas this just isn't moulded in the right shape for this engine, probably because this engine has a larger flywheel. And also, if we lower the bonnet here, you can see it scrapes up against the fuel tank and squishes it against the engine, which we don't really want to happen. So we will have to think of another way of mounting a fuel tank in here. Whether we use the same one or not, we're not fully sure of. But before we started thinking of how we're going to solve these problems, we had a quick look on our computer at how Gutbrod solved the problems, because they did a later model of the 1010 with a more powerful engine, similar size to this one, which we found quite helpful in seeing what they've done. So if we scroll down on our online brochure here, you can see that is the newer model of the 1010, and you can see there is the air filter, and they've cut a massive chunk out of the bonnet for that, bigger than the one that's on ours. And then you can see the exhaust there, which is a massive exhaust can. They've cut a piece out of the front grille, which we really don't want to do, to fit that big exhaust on there. And if we scroll down even more, you can see this picture of the other side, and they've taken a massive chunk out of that side of the bonnet to fit a fuel tank on there. But now that we've seen what Gutbrod did to solve these problems, let's go over our solutions. Here are our solutions to these 3 problems, and we would really like your feedback in the comment section, because a lot of our viewers have very good ideas of how to fix some of these problems, and we're not fully sure which of our ideas is the best at the moment. But I shall start with the air filter. Now, the first thing that we could do with that is do what Gutbrod did and take away an amount off of the bonnet here, which we think will be about 20mm, which should take it up to around the Motostandard sticker, if not a tiny bit off of the Motostandard sticker. So we're not really liking that idea very much. You can see where it would go up to if I hold this here. And another option for that is we have this air filter here from another Briggs & Stratton engine. This is actually from the original one, and this is much shorter than that old one. You can see if I put that there, that fits under the bonnet fine. However, it is a different design. You can see there it has the air is taken in through the bottom, so we're not fully sure how much this will reduce the efficiency of the old one, which has that channel bit which takes in air from inside the engine there. This is also a smaller hole here, so it will need to be adapted to go onto this carburetor, and also the mounting hole does not line up with this hole, so that would need to be adapted too. But size wise, we wouldn't have to alter the bonnet or anything like that. Now onto the exhaust, and again we've got multiple solutions for this. Firstly, we could do what Gutbrod did, which is cut away part of this so that we can stick our original can back on. However, we don't really like that idea of cutting away part of this, because this is the main brace for this whole front structure, and that would weaken that quite a lot. Another thing you can do, because this whole front grille is mounted on slotted holes, so you could actually pull this forward a bit if you wanted to, but we tried that off camera and that created quite a big gap in here, which made this look weird. Where it is at the moment, we like quite a lot because of how that fits between the bonnet and also this dashboard bit. These bits line up, it looks very nice, and we don't want to ruin that really, just to gain a tiny bit of space to put an exhaust on. So as mentioned before, we could get our original can, put an extension on there, and then bring that out to about here, and we would refit the heat shield on there to protect the carburetor from excessive heat. Or what we could do is take one of these standard cans and probably cut down this extension a bit, because this length is a bit excessive, and then screw that into the engine there, and then that would sit around here somewhere, and we'd have to put the heat shield back on somehow. Or we could take a couple of these 45-degree bends, put one from the engine like that to take the exhaust away from the carburetor, and then put another one going into that about there. Then take one of these standard cans, completely chop down this length to about there, so that if, imagine this can was the other way around, that would take it out to about there. The final challenge is the fuel tank, and we really do not like what Gutbrod did with the later models of these, taking a gash out of the hood for the fuel tank, so we're definitely not going to do that. We could try and relocate this original fuel tank, but it just doesn't really work with the size of this engine bay area. Another option would be to take tank, which is mounted to this other smaller Briggs & Stratton engine cover. But this tank is pretty tiny, and if we mounted this to here, I think we'd probably have more success having a water bottle as our fuel tank, capacity-wise, because that is very small. Another option, which I think is our preferred option at the moment, is you take an external tank, like one of these two, and then try and mount one of these in the engine bay, which you have your battery there, cables coming off the dashboard. There is a bit of space here. If we could make up the brackets to hold it here, to have a fuel tank sitting around here, which would make it quite difficult to get your battery out, but depending on how we position this, we could make it so you could still get the battery out, and then you can have a high capacity fuel tank than there originally was on this tractor. So for our 3 challenges, our preferred solutions are the 45-degree bends on the exhaust, because that takes it away from the carburetor and keeps heat away from that. On the fuel tank, as I'm pretty sure we expressed pretty strongly, we'd like to have an external one fitted up there somewhere. We think that'll probably be the easiest thing. It's just making the mounting brackets for that so that you can still take the battery out. And then what we think is our biggest challenge is the air filter. We're still undecided on that, whether we're going to try and use the smaller one or try and make it work with the original one for this engine. However, we would very much still like your opinions on what you think we should do with these challenges. Now, what we're going to do is take the engine out of the tractor and give it a good clean up, because as you can see, there's a lot of muck on that, and that does need a good clean up. So we've got a lot of work to do, but that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.